crony of mine, but now I hailed him with enthusiasm, and he in his turn appeared to be delighted to see me. In the exuberance of my joy, I asked him to lunch with me at the Holborn, and we started off together in a hansom.
"Whatever have you been doing with yourself, Watson?"
he asked in undisguised wonder, as we rattled through the crowded London streets.
"You are as thin as a lath, and as brown as a nut."
I gave him a short sketch of my adventures, and had hardly concluded it by the time we reached our destination.
"You poor devil. What are you up to now?"
"Looking for lodgings. Trying to solve the problem as to whether it is possible to get comfortable rooms at a reasonable price."
"That's a strange thing. You are the second man today that has used that expression to me."
"And who was the first?"
"A fellow who is working at the chemical laboratory at the hospital. He was bemoaning himself this morning because he couldn't get someone to go halves with him in some nice rooms which he had found, and were too much for his purse."
"By Jove, if he really wants someone to share the rooms and the expense, I am the very man for him. I should prefer having a partner to being alone." Young Stanford looked rather strangely at me over his wine-glass.
"You don't know Sherlock Holmes yet. Perhaps you would not care for him as a constant companion."
"Why, what is there against him?"
"Oh, I didn't say there was anything against him. He's a little queer in his ideas, an enthusiast in some branches of science. As far as I know, he's a decent fellow enough."
"A medical student, I suppose?"
"No, I have no idea in what he intends to go in for. I believe he is well up in anatomy and a first-class chemist. But as far as I know, he has never taken out systematic medical classes. His studies are very desultory and eccentric, but he has amassed a lot of out-of-the-way knowledge which would astonish his professors."
"Did you never ask him what he was going in for?"
"No, he's not a man that is easy to draw out, though he can be communicative enough when the fancy seizes him."
"I should like to meet him. If I'm to lodge with anyone, I should prefer a man with studious and quiet habits. I'm not strong enough yet to stand much noise or excitement. I had enough of both in Afghanistan to last me for the remainder of my natural existence. How could I meet this friend of yours?"
"He is sure to be at the laboratory. He either avoids the place for weeks, or he's there from morning till night. If you like, we can drive around together after luncheon."
"Certainly," I answered, and the conversation drifted away into other channels. As we made our way to the hospital after leaving the Holborn, Stamford gave me a few more particulars about the gentleman whom I proposed to take as a fellow lodger.
"You mustn't blame me if you don't get along with him. I know nothing more of him than what I know of meeting him occasionally in the laboratory. You proposed this arrangement, so you mustn't hold me responsible, Watson."
"Well, if we don't get on, it'll be easy to part company. It seems to me, Stamford," I added, looking hard at my companion, "that you have some reason for washing your hands of the matter. Is this fellow's temper so formidable? Or what is it? Now, don't be mealy-mouthed about it."
"Well, it's not easy to express the unexpressible. Holmes is a little too scientific for my taste. It approaches to cold-bloodedness. I could imagine him giving a friend a little pinch of the latest vegetable alkaloid, not out of malevolence, you understand, but simply out of the spirit of inquiry, in order to have an accurate idea of the effects. To do him justice, I think he would take it himself with the same readiness. He appears to have a passion for definite and exact knowledge."
"Very right, too."
"Yes, well, it may be pushed to excess. When it comes to beating the subjects in the dissecting room with a stick, it is certainly taking rather a bizarre shape."
"Beating the subjects?"
"Yes, to verify how far bruises may be produced after death. I saw him at it with my own eyes."
"And yet you say he's not a medical student?"
"No, heaven knows what the objects of his studies are. But here we are, and you must form your own impressions about him."
As he spoke, we turned down a narrow lane and passed through a small side door, which opened into a wing of the great hospital. It was familiar ground to me, and I needed no guidance as we ascended the bleak stone staircase, and made our way down the long corridor with its vista of whitewashed wall and dun-coloured doors. Near the further end, a low arched passage branched away from it and led to the chemical laboratory. This was a lofty chamber, lined and littered with countless bottles. Broad low tables were scattered about, which bristled with retorts, test tubes, and little Bunsen burners, with their blue flickering flames. There was only one student in the room, who was bending over a distant table, absorbed in his work. At the sound of our steps, he glanced around and sprang to his feet with a cry of pleasure. "I found it! I found it!" he shouted to my companion, running towards us with a